The spiritual contract that mandated your longest struggle is officially nullified today. Every demonic or ancestral force that held you in that prolonged battle has just lost its legal standing. Visualize the crushing weight of that fight evaporating not slowly but instantly as this divine, decisive intervention takes control. This isn't a negotiation, it is a hostile takeover of your timeline. Napoleon Hill defined this exact moment, when infinite intelligence enforces its will. That divine will is your total, sudden, and irreversible victory. You have been waiting in the silence, asking yourself if the divine ear heard your cries. You have been standing in the wasteland of your longest struggle, wondering if the battle would ever end, if the forces arrayed against you were simply too powerful, too entrenched, too ancient to be moved. The nights have been long. The prayers have felt like they disappeared into a void. You have watched others receive their breakthroughs while you remained in the desert. And the question has haunted you. Why not me? Why is my battle so long? But the silence was not abandonment. The silence was the reconfiguration of the cosmic order itself. The spiritual contract that mandated your longest struggle is officially nullified today. Every demonic or ancestral force that held you in that prolonged battle has just lost its legal standing. Visualize the crushing weight of that fight evaporating not slowly, but instantly as this divine, decisive intervention takes control. This is not a negotiation. This is a hostile takeover of your timeline. Napoleon Hill defined this exact moment when infinite intelligence enforces its will. That divine will is your total, sudden, and irreversible victory. The divine verdict was the decisive move. That crushing, final judgment from the unseen realm was the moment the battle ended. But you must understand something crucial. The verdict has been rendered, the judgment has been announced, but crushing was rendered was. Now you must execute the sentence. The sudden victory requires enforcement. The spiritual realm does not simply hand you victory and walk away. It hands you the authority, the mandate, the cosmic legal standing to enforce what has already been decreed. This is where most believers, most warriors, most faithful souls fail. They receive the verdict and they wait. They expect the material plane to simply conform without their participation. This is a catastrophic error. You are not a passive recipient. You are the enforcer of the divine will. The battle exhausted you, and that exhaustion was intentional. The old forces knew that if they could tire you, isolate you, make you question your worthiness, they could extend the contract indefinitely. But that strategy has been nullified. The contract is void, the forces have no standing, and now you step into the role of enforcer. First, we will command the ether using Hill's law of definite purpose. This is your divine verdict made, manifest. You will learn to write the decree with such precision, such absolute clarity, that the universe has no choice but to comply. Vague prayers invite demonic negotiation. Absolute commands seal the contract. Second, we will force alliance using the mastermind principle. This is the celestial enforcement of your victory. You will draft infinite intelligence itself into a martial pact, assembling unseen forces to execute the physical manifestation of your sudden victory. You cannot win this final step alone, and you were never meant to. Third, we will smash the old reality using applied faith. The physical evidence of the struggle must be annihilated. This is not hope. This is violent conviction, the engineered weapon that Hill discovered among the wealthiest, most powerful men of his era. Stay until the end, because I will deliver the three-step activation protocol to enforce this sudden victory and claim material evidence within 48 hours. The clock is already ticking. The verdict is already in motion. You must simply align your actions with the cosmic sentence that has been pronounced over your life. Are you ready to enforce the verdict? This is not a rhetorical question. Your readiness is not emotional, it is tactical. Your readiness is the difference between a verdict and a victory, between a promise and a possession. The battle has ended, but the memory of the struggle remains. You can still feel the weight of the chains, even though they have been legally removed. This is the psychological infrastructure of the enemy, and it must be demolished. You must finalize the divine verdict now, sealing the decisive move with absolute precision. Napoleon Hill called this concept a definite chief aim. This language is insufficient. It is not an aim. An aim suggests approximation, a target you might miss, a goal you strive toward. This is a divine decree. This is the language of cosmic law. This is how the universe bends matter and energy to conform to will. Vague desires invite demonic negotiation. When you say, "I want more money," the universe hears negotiation. The ancestral forces, the demonic structures that were just nullified, hear an opening. They hear weakness. They hear a door left unlocked. But when you command with absolute precision, when you state, "I command the immediate manifestation of $50,000 within the next 30 days through channels known and unknown," aligned with divine will, you speak the language that infinite intelligence respects for a sudden victory. Hill witnessed this principle among steel magnates, railroad barons, and oil tycoons. These men did not wish for fortunes. They commanded them. They wrote the verdict before the trial ever began. They sat in their offices, put pen to paper, and declared the outcome with such precision that reality had no choice but to conform. This is not metaphor. This is mechanical law. This is how the universe operates at the highest frequencies of power and wealth. You must decisively move your focus. You must stop thinking in terms of hope and begin thinking in terms of command. You must command your new reality. Take out a piece of paper right now. Write the exact dollar amount, not a range, not an approximation, not someday or I hope or if God wills it. The divine will has already been expressed. The verdict is final. Your only job is to articulate the decree with forensic precision. Write the exact dollar amount you are commanding to manifest. Write the exact timeline. Write the exact channels through which this wealth will flow, even if you cannot yet see them. The universe does not require your understanding. The universe requires your authority. And that authority is expressed through definiteness, through the absolute elimination of vagueness. I am the enforcer of the divine will. My decree is law. The battle is over. You must speak this creed aloud, not as affirmation, but as enforcement. You are not convincing yourself. You are instructing the unseen realm. You are filing the legal paperwork in the cosmic court. This is your signature on the verdict. This is your seal on the decree. And if you ignore this step, if you treat this as optional, as inspirational content to be consumed and forgotten, you confuse the battlefield. You reject the divine verdict and invite the nullified forces back into your timeline by default. The universe abhors a vacuum. If you do not command your new reality with precision, the old reality will reassert itself simply because it is familiar, simply because it is the path of least resistance. You must aggressively, violently, decisively move your focus from the battlefield to the throne room. You are no longer the warrior. You are the judge. You are the enforcer of the sentence. The decree is signed. The verdict is written. The timeline is set. But before we move forward, you must seal this moment with action. If you are truly here, ready to execute this decisive move and finalize the sudden victory, you must declare your alignment right now. You must make your presence known. Comment the words "verdict is final" below this message. This is not optional. Presence seals the spiritual contract. Action executes the physical sentence. The universe does not respond to passive listening. The universe responds to decisive action, to the public declaration of your alignment with the divine decree. When you type those 3 words, "verdict is final," you are not simply leaving a comment. You are filing your testimony in the cosmic court. You are announcing to the seen and unseen realms that you accept the verdict, that you reject the old contract, that you align yourself with the sudden victory that has been decreed over your life. Have you signed the contract? The next step cannot begin until you do. Now, we assemble the enforcers. You cannot win this final step alone. The old battle was exhausting precisely because it was designed to isolate you. The demonic strategy is always the same: separate the target, cut them off from resources, from allies, from hope, and then wear them down through attrition. You have survived that strategy. The forces that deployed it have lost their legal standing. But survival is not victory. Victory requires the assembly of overwhelming force to execute the decree you just wrote. This is Napoleon Hill's mastermind principle, but you must understand it correctly. The mastermind is not a business meeting. It is not a networking event. It is not a mastermind group where entrepreneurs share strategies and hold each other accountable. This is the tactical assembly of celestial forces, the drafting of infinite intelligence itself into a martial alliance to enforce the divine verdict. You are not asking for help. You are commanding alliance. You are drafting the unseen God, the universe, your higher self, angelic forces, the collective unconscious, whatever language your belief system requires, into a binding pact to execute the sudden victory on the material plane. This is how kingdoms were built, not by one mind, but by one mind commanding the spiritual energy of thousands, seen and unseen. Hill documented this principle by studying Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. These men did not succeed because they were individually brilliant. They succeeded because they knew how to command the master mind, how to draft the collective intelligence and energy of others into a singular focused will. And the most powerful mastermind is not a group of men. It is the direct alliance between your focused will and infinite intelligence. I know you have felt alone in this battle. I know you have wondered why others seem to have support, resources, connections, while you stood in the desert with nothing but your faith. That isolation was not random. It was preparation. God was clearing the field of every force, every voice, every influence that was not aligned with your sudden victory. The loneliness you felt was the sound of God, removing the distractions, the false allies, the compromised relationships that would have diluted your authority. You were never abandoned. You were being prepared to command the highest form of alliance, direct partnership with infinite intelligence. No human ally can deliver what you are about to receive. No business partner, no mentor, no friend has the authority to enforce the verdict that has been rendered over your life. Only the mastermind, only the direct alliance with the divine can execute this level of sudden victory. Stop fighting the old energy. The battle is over. You are no longer defending. You are no longer reacting. You are commanding. Command your new allies. Speak this alliance into existence. You do this through direct, authoritative speech, not prayer in the traditional sense, not supplication, not begging, not asking if maybe, possibly, if it is the divine will. The divine will has been expressed. The verdict is final. Your job is to enforce it. So you speak to infinite intelligence as a general speaks to his army, with clarity, with authority, with the absolute expectation of compliance. Infinite intelligence, I command you as my master mind. Enforce my victory now. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are not commanding God as if you are above God. You are commanding as the enforcer of divine will, as the executor of the verdict that has already been rendered. You are the legal representative of the divine decree on the material plane. If you attempt this solo, you fight as a man. You forfeit the decisive move, and you will be overwhelmed by the very forces God just nullified. The universe does not respect solo effort at this level of spiritual warfare. The universe respects alliance, pact, covenant, binding agreement between seen and unseen forces. This is why Hill insisted that no great fortune was ever accumulated without the mastermind principle. He did not mean you need a business partner. He meant you need to understand how to command the forces of the unseen realm to align with your decree and enforce it across the material plane. The alliance is formed. The verdict is signed. The mastermind is assembled. The last step is to annihilate the past. Take a moment now. Close your eyes if you are able. Feel the shift in the atmosphere around you. The oppressive weight that has sat on your chest for months. For years it is lifting, not gradually, instantly. The air feels different, lighter. The spiritual realm has already executed the decisive move. The contract is nullified, the forces are removed. And in this silence, in this sacred pause, you are standing in the space between the old timeline and the new. The old timeline, the timeline of struggle, is collapsing behind you like a tunnel that has served its purpose. You cannot go back. The entrance is sealed. And ahead of you, the new timeline, the timeline of sudden victory, of divine favor, of wealth that flows without resistance, is opening like a door you did not know existed. You do not have to force this door open. It is already open. You simply have to step through. And in this moment of silence, feel the presence of the divine alliance you just commanded. Feel the mastermind, infinite intelligence surrounding you, above you, beneath you, aligning every force in the seen and unseen realms with the decree you have written. This is not imagination. This is recognition. You are recognizing what has already been done. Breathe deeply. Hold this feeling. This is the frequency of victory. The enemy is defeated, but his infrastructure, your poverty, your doubt, your old identity remains. You must now execute the hostile takeover of your timeline. This is Napoleon Hill's applied faith, but again, you must understand it correctly. Applied faith is not passive hope. It is not the belief that someday, somehow, things might get better. It is the violent conviction that the sudden victory is already complete. It is the engineered state of mind that pays the spiritual mastermind you just assembled. Faith is the currency. Without this payment, the alliance dissolves and the divine verdict is suspended, not because God changed his mind, but because you failed to execute your role as enforcer. Hill states that faith is a state of mind which may be induced by autosuggestion. This is critical. Faith is not a lottery ticket. You do not wait to feel faithful. You engineer faith. You manufacture it through repetition, through autosuggestion, through the deliberate, disciplined repetition of your decree, until your subconscious mind accepts it as fact. And when your subconscious mind accepts the decree as fact, the universe treats it as fact. This is mechanical law. This is not mysticism. This is the documented science of how the wealthiest men Hill studied commanded reality to conform to their will. They did not wait to feel confident. They commanded confidence into existence through disciplined repetition until their nervous system, their subconscious mind, and the universe itself accepted their decree as settled law. Act as the victor. Speak as the victor. Command evidence to appear. You do not act as if you are waiting for the victory. You act as if the victory is already complete, and you are simply occupying the timeline in which it has manifested. You walk into rooms differently. You speak to people differently. You make financial decisions differently, not recklessly. This is not about spending money you do not have. This is about the energy signature you broadcast. The universe reads energy before it reads words. If your energy says, I am still in the battle, I am still waiting, I hope this works, the universe delivers more waiting, more battle, more hope without fulfillment. But if your energy says, the verdict is final, the victory is complete, I am simply executing the sentence, the universe conforms. The material plane catches up to the spiritual decree you have already filed. My faith is the evidence. My conviction is the currency. The victory is mine. This is not arrogance. This is enforcement. You are not trying to convince the universe. You are instructing your subconscious mind to align with the decree, and your subconscious mind instructs the universe. This is the chain of command. You speak the decree. Your subconscious mind accepts the decree through repetition. Your subconscious mind broadcasts the decree to infinite intelligence. Infinite intelligence rearranges the material plane to conform. This is the sequence. And if you doubt, if you countersue God by saying, but what if it does not work? What if I am not worthy? What if the battle comes back? You invalidate the divine verdict and choose to remain in the battle that was already won for you. The old timeline is broken. The hostile takeover is complete. The infrastructure of the enemy is demolished. You are no longer operating under the old contract. You are operating under the new decree, the final verdict, the sudden and irreversible victory. But you are saying, the battle was so long. What if the feeling of struggle returns? I hear you. I understand the exhaustion in that question. You have fought for so long that the battle became your identity. You woke up every morning preparing to fight. You went to bed every night wondering if you had fought hard enough. The struggle became so familiar that you cannot imagine life without it. And now, I am telling you the battle is over, and part of you does not believe it because the feeling of the struggle is still so present. This is valid. This is real. But you must understand the difference between a feeling and a fact. The divine verdict is irreversible. That is the fact. The feeling of struggle is just the echo of the old, nullified contract. Your decisive move was executed in the spiritual realm. The material realm is now catching up to the drawl, shock wave of your victory. There is a lag time. This is not because God is slow. This is because matter vibrates at a lower frequency than spirit. The spiritual realm responds instantly to your decree. The material realm requires time to rearrange molecules, to shift circumstances, to move people and resources into alignment. But the shock wave has already been released. The verdict has already been filed. The sudden victory is already in motion. The echo you feel, the doubt, the memory of the struggle, the fear that it might return has no legal standing. It is a ghost. It is the residual energy of a contract that has been nullified. When the echo of doubt appears, you do not fight it. You sentence it. You do not engage in a wrestling match with your own mind. You simply state, with authority, that contract is nullified. That feeling has no legal standing. I operate under the new decree. The battle is over. The verdict is final. Echoes have no legal standing. This is the language you use. This is the enforcement mechanism. You are not trying to feel better. You are instructing reality. You are reminding the unseen realm and your own subconscious that the old contract is void. The demonic forces, the ancestral patterns, the spiritual infrastructure of the struggle, all of it has been legally dissolved. The feeling is just a memory, and memories have no power unless you grant them authority. You do not grant authority. You revoke it. How many times have you asked yourself, why is this taking so long? How many nights have you prayed for breakthrough only to wake up in the same battle? That season is over. Not because you finally earned the victory, you could never earn what was freely given. That season is over because God's timing is perfect. God's timing is perfect. God's timing is perfect. The delay was not punishment. The delay was preparation. Every extra month, every extra year in the battle was God fortifying your foundation, removing the weak connections, purging the compromised alliances, clearing the field so that when the sudden victory arrives, nothing can steal it, nothing can dilute it, nothing can compromise it. The length of the battle was proportional to the magnitude of the victory. And the victory that is about to manifest in your life is so large, so sudden, so complete, that it required a foundation strong enough to hold it without collapsing. This brings us to the activation key. This is how we force the sudden victory into the material plane in 48 hours. This is not a routine. Routines are optional. Routines are the things you do when you feel like it, when it is convenient, when you have time. This is your martial discipline. This is enforcement. This is the tactical execution of the verdict. If you treat this as optional, you are not serious about the sudden victory. You are still playing with the idea of victory while secretly remaining comfortable in the identity of the struggler. The struggler identity must be executed. It must be annihilated. And that annihilation happens through disciplined, relentless enforcement of the decree you have written. Discipline is the enforcer. Without discipline, the decree remains a beautiful idea, a powerful concept, but it never touches matter. And you did not come this far to remain in the realm of ideas. You came to enforce the verdict on the material plane. Tonight, at 11 p.m., you will take your written decree from the first step. This is the exact dollar amount, the exact timeline, the exact decree you wrote when you commanded your new reality. You will read this verse of command, this phrase of power. By the authority of infinite intelligence, the divine verdict is final. I command the immediate and total manifestation of my sudden victory. You will read your decree and the command phrase 7 times. Not 6, not 8, 7. This number is not arbitrary. 7 is the biblical number of completion, the frequency of divine fulfillment. You will read it 7 times, and as you read it, you will feel the authority of the decisive move. You will not rush. You will not mumble. You will speak with the authority of a judge reading a sentence, with the clarity of a general issuing orders to his army. After the 7th repetition, you will sit in silence for 5 minutes. Close your eyes. Let the room around you disappear. In this silence, you are not alone. You are surrounded by the master mind, by the celestial alliance you commanded into existence. Feel the presence of infinite intelligence like a weight in the room, like a warmth on your skin, like a certainty in your chest. This is not imagination, this is recognition. You are recognizing the forces that have already been deployed on your behalf. Visualize your celestial alliance enforcing this verdict across the globe. See angelic forces moving through boardrooms, through banks, through the minds of decision makers. See divine intelligence rearranging. Circumstances opening doors you did not know existed, closing doors that would have led to compromise. See resources moving toward you like rivers converging into a single unstoppable current. See people being positioned in your path, people who carry the keys, the connections, the opportunities that align perfectly with your decree. Feel the certainty that the victory is not coming. It is already here, already in motion, already executed in the spiritual realm. You are simply witnessing the enforcement. Breathe in this certainty. Let it fill your lungs. Let it saturate your nervous system. Let it become the baseline frequency of your existence. This is the new normal. This is the atmosphere of sudden victory. Upon waking the next morning, you must find and record one piece of evidence that the verdict is in motion. This is the audit. This is the key performance indicator. This is how you measure enforcement. The evidence does not need to be dramatic. It can be a coin you find on the street. It can be an unexpected email. It can be a phone call from someone you have not heard from in months. It can be a shift in your own feeling, a sudden surge of peace or confidence that was not there the day before. But you must find it, and you must record it. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Take a photo of it if it is physical. Lock it into your conscious awareness. This evidence is not proof that the victory is coming. This evidence is proof that the victory is already here, already manifesting, already moving from the spiritual realm into the material plane. You are documenting the shock wave. Failure to audit is failure to enforce. If your compliance with this discipline falls below 95%, you are not enforcing the verdict. You are playing with it. You are treating it as inspirational content rather than cosmic law. You must execute this discipline as if your life depends on it, because your new life does depend on it. The old life, the life of struggle, the life under the old contract, that life is over. But the new life, the life of sudden victory, the life of wealth and peace and divine favor, that life requires your participation. It requires your enforcement. The universe has rendered the verdict. You must execute the sentence. Without your daily audit, without your disciplined repetition, without your refusal to tolerate the echoes of the old contract, the verdict remains filed but not enforced. And an unenforced verdict is functionally meaningless. You did not survive the longest battle of your life to leave the victory unenforced. You will enforce it with precision, with discipline, with relentless focus for the next 48 hours and beyond. The battle is over. The divine verdict is filed. You are no longer the soldier. You are the victor. The timeline of struggle has been legally erased from your existence by the decisive move of infinite intelligence. This is not metaphor. This is not motivation. This is legal standing in the cosmic court. The forces that held you in that prolonged battle have lost their authority. They have no claim on your future. They have no access to your timeline. They are nullified. And you are operating under a new contract, a new decree, a new identity. You are the evidence of the divine verdict. The battle is ended. You accept the sudden victory. Say this aloud, right now. I am the evidence of the divine verdict. The battle is ended. I accept the sudden victory. This is your oath of command. This is the moment you sign the new contract. For the next 24 hours, you will not ask for anything. You will not beg. You will not plead. You will not hope. You will only command and decree as the victor. You will walk through the next 24 hours as if the victory is already complete, because it is. You will speak with authority. You will act with certainty. You will command evidence to appear, and it will appear, because the universe has no choice but to conform to the verdict that has been rendered over your life. Seal this divine contract. Subscribe to this channel and activate notifications, because your new reality requires new orders, fresh decrees, continuous enforcement. The sudden victory is yours. The decisive move has been executed. The longest battle is over. The verdict is final. The contract is signed. The alliance is formed. The mastermind is assembled. But now we must address the most dangerous obstacle that remains, the identity gap. This is the space between who you were in the battle and who you must become to sustain the sudden victory. This gap is where most people lose everything. They receive the breakthrough, the windfall, the miracle, and within months they are back in the old pattern, back in the old struggle, wondering what went wrong. What went wrong was not the victory. What went wrong was the failure to execute the identity takeover. You cannot carry sudden victory in the container of the old self. The old self was built for survival. The new self must be built for dominion. Napoleon Hill observed this pattern among those who suddenly acquired wealth and those who lost it just as suddenly. The difference was never in the amount of money. The difference was in the identity structure that held the money. Men who inherited fortunes without the disciplined mindset to command them lost everything within a generation. Men who built fortunes from nothing, who engineered the identity of wealth before the wealth arrived, held their empires for lifetimes, and passed them to descendants who continued the legacy. The sudden victory you are about to receive requires a new identity, and that new identity must be constructed with the same precision, the same discipline, the same absolute authority as the decree you wrote. This is not optional. This is enforcement. And if you ignore the identity takeover, if you treat the external decree as sufficient without restructuring the internal frequency, you will sabotage the victory before it fully manifests. The universe cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. The container must change, or the blessing spills. The old identity served you in the battle. It kept you alive. It taught you endurance, resilience, the capacity to withstand prolonged pressure without breaking. But that identity was built for defense, not offense. It was built to survive the siege, not to occupy the promised land. And now the siege is over. The verdict is final. The forces are nullified. But if you step into the new timeline carrying the defensive posture of the old identity, you will unconsciously reject the abundance, because it does not match the frequency you have been broadcasting. This is why so many lottery winners lose everything. This is why so many people who receive sudden inheritance squander it. The money arrived, but the identity did not shift. The external reality changed, but the internal frequency remained locked in scarcity, in fear, in the belief that the struggle is the only reality that can be trusted. You must execute the hostile takeover of your own identity. This is the most intimate, most uncomfortable, most necessary act of enforcement. You must identify every thought pattern, every emotional habit, every behavioral reflex that belongs to the old contract and sentence it. Not gently, not gradually, decisively, when the thought arises. What if this does not last? What if I lose it all? What if I am not good enough to sustain this? You do not analyze it. You do not negotiate with it. You sentence it. You state, with authority, that thought belongs to the nullified contract. It has no legal standing in my new timeline. I reject it. And then you immediately replace it with the thought of the new identity. I am the enforcer of divine will. I am the container of sudden victory. I sustain what God has decreed because I am aligned with the frequency of his verdict. This is not positive thinking. This is identity. Enforcement. Positive thinking tries to paper over the old identity with optimistic phrases. Identity enforcement demolishes the old structure and builds a new one from the ground up. Hill called this process autosuggestion, but that term is too soft for what we are doing here. This is psychological warfare. You are at war with the old self, and the old self will not surrender quietly. It will fight for survival. It will whisper familiar doubts, familiar fears, familiar limitations. It will tell you that the old struggle was at least predictable, at least manageable, at least familiar. It will suggest that the sudden victory is too good to be true, too dangerous to trust, too large for someone like you to hold. And in those moments, you do not debate, you execute. You remind the old self that it no longer has authority. The contract is nullified. The battle is over. The new identity is the only legal resident of this timeline. How do you build the new identity? You do it the same way Hill's steel magnates built their fortunes, through relentless, disciplined repetition of the new truth until your subconscious mind accepts it as fact. You write the identity statement. This is separate from your financial decree. This is the declaration of who you are in the timeline of sudden victory. Examples. I am a man who commands wealth effortlessly. I am a woman who receives divine favor as my baseline reality. I am the enforcer of the divine verdict in every area of my life. I am the living evidence that God's timing is perfect and his rewards are sudden and irreversible. Stop here. Do this now. Write your identity statement. Do not continue reading until you have written it. This is not optional. The words must come from your mouth, flow through your hands, lock into your subconscious. Write it now. Do not rush. Feel the authority of each word as you write it. This is your oath. This is your entry into the new timeline. Write it. You have written the identity statement. Now you will repeat it. 7 times in the morning, 7 times at night. Every time the old identity whispers doubt, you overwrite it with the new declaration. This is not about feeling it. This is about engineering it. You are installing new software into your subconscious operating system, and installation requires repetition, requires consistency, requires the absolute refusal to tolerate the old code. Your identity statement is your barrier against the sabotage of the old timeline. I am the enforcer of divine will. My identity is fixed. My decree is law. This is your creed. This is the mantra that holds the new structure in place. When doubt whispers, you respond, I am the enforcer of divine will. When fear creeps in, you respond, my identity is fixed. When resistance appears, you respond, my decree is law. These 3 statements are not affirmations. They are declarations of legal standing. They are the announcement that you now occupy a different frequency. A different timeline, a different realm of possibility than the one you inhabited in the battle. The evidence will come. This is where most people fail. They execute the decree. They command the mastermind. They even start the identity work. But then they look around, and they do not see immediate dramatic evidence, and they panic. They assume the process failed. They assume they did something wrong. They revert to the old identity because at least the old identity is familiar. This is sabotage. This is how you nullify the verdict yourself. You must understand the timeline of manifestation. The spiritual realm responds instantly. The material realm lags. The lag is not evidence of failure. The lag is evidence of the universe rearranging matter, energy, people, and circumstances to align with your decree. During the lag, your only job is to maintain the frequency of the new identity. Your only job is to refuse the whispers of the old contract. Your only job is to enforce the verdict through disciplined repetition. This is where the victory journal becomes your lifeline. You will create a physical notebook, not digital, not a note on your phone, physical. There is something about the act of writing by hand that locks evidence into your subconscious in a way that typing cannot replicate. Every morning, you will write the date and the heading, evidence of the verdict, and then you will record every piece of evidence, no matter how small, that the sudden victory is in motion, a coin on the street, an unexpected refund, a compliment from a stranger, a door that opened, a problem that resolved itself, a shift in your own energy. You will write it down. This is not optional. This is law. The victory journal is the physical record of the shock wave moving from the spiritual realm into the material. You do not create the victory journal to see if the verdict is working. You create the victory journal to document proof that the verdict is already working. Every Sunday evening, you will review the week's evidence. You will read it aloud. You will feel the momentum building, and as the weeks pass, the evidence will compound. The small signs will become medium signs. The medium signs will become undeniable manifestations. The victory journal will become the physical proof that the verdict was not theory. It was law. It was mechanism. It was enforced through your disciplined participation. But I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, what if I have tried this before? What if I have declared things, repeated things, visualized things, and nothing changed? This is a valid question, and it deserves a precise answer. What you tried before was not enforcement. What you tried before was experimentation. You approached it with hope, with curiosity, with the energy of let me see if this works. That energy is not command. That energy is negotiation, and negotiation invites demonic interference. The universe does not respond to experimentation. It responds to authority. When you approach the decree with the energy of enforcement, with the certainty that the verdict is already final, and you are simply executing the sentence, the universe has no choice but to conform. The difference is in the frequency you carry when you speak the words, and the frequency of enforcement is built through the identity takeover. You cannot command as the old self. You can only command as the new self. Let me give you a tactical example. Two men write the same decree. I command the immediate manifestation of $100,000 within 60 days. One man writes it with the identity of scarcity. He writes it hoping it will work, wondering if he is doing it right, secretly doubting whether he deserves it. The other man writes it with the identity of dominion. He writes it knowing the verdict is already final, knowing the mastermind is already assembled, knowing the 60 days is simply the material lag time for the shockwave to manifest. Both men wrote the same words, but only the second man will receive the $100,000, because the second man is enforcing. The first man is experimenting. The universe reads the frequency. The frequency is determined by the identity. This is why the identity takeover is not optional. This is why it must be executed with the same precision, the same discipline, the same relentless focus as the decree itself. You are not trying to become someone new. You are recognizing who you already are in the timeline where the verdict is final. This is a subtle but critical distinction. The old paradigm says, I must work hard to become worthy of the blessing. The new paradigm says, the blessing is already decreed, and I must align my identity with the timeline in which it has already manifested. You are not climbing toward the victory. You are stepping into it. You are not earning it. You are enforcing it. And enforcement requires you to occupy the identity of the enforcer, not the forcement. Identity of the hopeful petitioner. Now we must address the second major obstacle, the sabotage of familiarity. The old timeline is collapsing, but it is not collapsing silently. It is throwing up obstacles, distractions, crises designed to pull you back into the familiar pattern. This is not demonic attack. The demonic forces lost their legal standing. This is the momentum of the old timeline trying to sustain itself through sheer inertia. Old relationships will suddenly resurface with demands on your time. Old financial obligations will seem to multiply. Old emotional patterns will flare up with surprising intensity. This is not evidence that the verdict failed. This is evidence that the old timeline is collapsing and trying to drag you down with it. You must recognize this for what it is and refuse to re-engage. If you accept the illusion that the old obligations are still binding, if you re-enter the old relationships with the old energy, you will slow the manifestation of the sudden victory. The shockwave will be delayed, the timeline will extend, and you will have chosen limitation over liberation. Hill documented this pattern among men who were on the verge of breakthrough. He called it the moment of greatest resistance. Just before the fortune manifested, just before the deal closed, just before the victory became undeniable, something would happen. A partner would betray them. A supplier would fail. A personal crisis would erupt. And the men who panicked, who reverted to old strategies, who abandoned the disciplined focus of the master mind, they lost everything. But the men who recognized the resistance as the death throes of the old timeline, who refused to be distracted, who doubled down on the discipline of the decree and the identity they broke through, and their breakthroughs were sudden, total, irreversible. This is where you are right now. The old timeline is collapsing. The resistance will intensify before it disappears. Your job is to refuse re-engagement. When the old relationship calls demanding your attention, you do not explain yourself. You do not justify the new timeline. You simply state, I am no longer available for that dynamic, and you end the conversation. When the old financial crisis flares up, you do not panic. You do not revert to scarcity thinking. You simply decree, the resources I need are already in motion, aligned with the divine verdict, and you continue the enforcement. When the old emotional pattern tries to reassert itself, you do not indulge it. You sentence it. That emotion belongs to the nullified contract. I reject it. I operate from the frequency of sudden victory. This is not cold. This is not unfeeling. This is tactical. This is enforcement. You are protecting the new timeline from the sabotage of the old. Take a moment now. Close your eyes. Feel the shift happening inside you. The old identity is loosening its grip. The new identity is taking root. Visualize the two timelines side by side. The old timeline, the one you have inhabited for so long, is fading. It is becoming transparent, ghost-like. It no longer has substance. It no longer has power. And the new timeline, the one where the verdict is final, is becoming solid, vivid, undeniable. You can feel the ground beneath your feet changing. You can feel the air around you becoming lighter. The people, the circumstances, the resources of the old timeline are releasing their hold on you. And the people, the circumstances, the resources of the new timeline are moving into position. Some are already here. Some are still approaching, but they are all in motion. Feel the certainty of this. Feel the absolute knowing that the verdict is not coming. It is here. It is now. It is already being executed. Breathe into this knowing. Let it settle into your nervous system. This is your new baseline frequency. This is the environment in which you now live. God is not testing you. Let me be clear about this because the old religious paradigm has poisoned this moment for too many people. The resistance you are experiencing is not God testing your faith to see if you are worthy. The verdict is already final. You are already worthy. God declared it when He nullified the contract. The resistance is simply the natural consequence of two timelines colliding. The old timeline is collapsing. The new timeline is emerging. And in the space between, there is friction. That friction is not evidence of divine displeasure. That friction is evidence of divine enforcement. God is clearing the field. He is removing every force, every voice, every influence that does not align with your sudden victory. The people who are leaving your life are not being taken from you. They are being removed because they belong to the old contract. The doors that are closing are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of redirection toward the doors that align with the new decree. Trust the clearing. Trust the friction. Trust the resistance. It is not your enemy. It is the proof that the verdict is being enforced at the highest level. The most controversial part of this enforcement is the rejection of false humility. The old religious paradigm taught you that humility means making yourself small, denying your power, attributing all success to God while taking all blame for failure upon yourself. This is not biblical humility. This is psychological sabotage dressed in religious language. True humility is the recognition that you are the enforcer of divine will, not the source of it. True humility is the acknowledgement that the verdict came from God, but the execution is your responsibility. True humility is the confidence to command in God's name, not the cowardice to shrink from the authority He has given you. False humility says, "Who am I to command wealth? Who am I to decree victory? I am nothing. I am unworthy." True humility says, "I am nothing without God, but with God I am the enforcer of His will, and His will is my total, sudden, and irreversible victory." And if you cling to false humility, if you refuse to execute your role as enforcer because you believe it is too bold, too prideful, too ambitious, you reject the verdict and choose to remain in the battle that was already won for you. Hill encountered this pattern among religious men who had great faith but no fortune. They prayed fervently. They believed sincerely. But they never commanded. They never enforced. They never occupied the identity of dominion because they had been taught that dominion was prideful. And so they remained in poverty, in struggle, in prolonged battle, wondering why God did not answer their prayers. God did answer. God rendered the verdict. But they refused to execute it because they confused enforcement with arrogance. You must not make this mistake. Reframe this now. The old paradigm says, "I am waiting on God." The new paradigm says, "God is waiting on me." God has already done His part. He nullified the contract. He rendered the verdict. He assembled the mastermind. He set the sudden victory in motion. Now He is waiting on you to execute your part. He is waiting on you to write the decree with precision. He is waiting on you to occupy the identity of the enforcer. He is waiting on you to refuse the sabotage of the old timeline. He is waiting on you to recognize the evidence and record it in your victory journal. He is waiting on you to command, not as a beggar, but as His appointed representative on the material plane. This is not irreverent. This is the highest form of reverence. You honor God by executing the verdict He has rendered. You dishonor God by treating the verdict as optional, as theory, as inspirational content that makes you feel good but does not transform your reality. The final piece of the identity takeover is the public declaration. This is the part that terrifies most people. The old contract punished you for visibility. It taught you that if you speak your desires aloud, they will be mocked, stolen, or sabotaged. So you learn to hide. You learn to keep your decrees private, your dreams secret, your victories invisible. But that strategy belongs to the old timeline. In the new timeline, public declaration is part of the enforcement mechanism. When you declare the verdict publicly, you lock it into the material plane in a way that private repetition cannot. This does not mean you announce your financial decree to everyone, but it does mean you announce your identity. You tell the people in your inner circle that you are no longer the person who tolerates struggle, who accepts prolonged battle, who operates from scarcity. You tell them, "I am the enforcer of divine will. I operate from the frequency of sudden victory, and I will no longer engage with dynamics that contradict this identity." Some people will celebrate this declaration. They will recognize the shift and align with it. Other people will mock it. They will try to pull you back into the old dynamic. And in that moment, You will know who belongs in your new timeline and who does not. The people who mock the declaration are ghosts of the old contract. You release them with gratitude and you refuse to re-engage. The public declaration also activates the principle of witness. Hill documented this among the wealthiest men he studied. They did not keep their aims secret. They announced them to their mastermind groups, to their inner circles, to people whose faith could amplify their own. And the act of announcement created a field of collective belief that accelerated the manifestation. When multiple minds align around a single decree, the frequency multiplies, the manifestation accelerates. This is physics. This is law. If you do not have people like that in your life yet, that is evidence that God is clearing the field. The new alliances are coming. They are part of the sudden victory. But in the meantime, you announce to the unseen witnesses. You speak your decree aloud in the room when you are alone. You acknowledge the presence of the mastermind, the angelic forces, the divine intelligence witnessing your enforcement. You say, I declare before heaven and earth that I am the enforcer of the divine verdict. The battle is over, the sudden victory is mine. And I call forth the witnesses, seen and unseen, to align their faith with this decree and accelerate its manifestation on the material plane. This is not strange. This is enforcement. This is how you activate the full power of the mastermind, the full force of the celestial alliance, the full authority of the verdict that has been rendered over your life. You are no longer in the battle. You are in the mop-up operation. The enemy is defeated. The contract is nullified. The forces have lost their standing. But the infrastructure of the old timeline is still present, still trying to function as if the war continues. Your job is to systematically dismantle that infrastructure through the identity takeover, through the rejection of false humility, through the public declaration, through the victory journal, through the relentless, disciplined enforcement of the decree and the identity. This is not a sprint. This is a 48-hour intensive, followed by a sustained campaign. The first 48 hours force the shockwave into motion. The sustained campaign ensures that the shockwave reaches full manifestation without interference. You are the enforcer. You are the executor. You are the appointed representative of divine will on the material plane. And the sudden victory is not only yours, it is already here. The verdict is rendered. The contract is nullified. The alliance is formed and executing. The infrastructure of the old timeline is crumbling. And now comes the moment that separates the believers from the enforcers, the moment of absolute revindication. This is when you stop asking. This is when you stop hoping. This is when you stop treating the victory as a future possibility, and you begin treating it as a present reality. This is the alignment between the spiritual verdict and the material manifestation. This is when the shockwave reaches critical mass and the sudden victory becomes undeniable, irreversible, and absolute. But before the victory fully locks into place, we must address the final layer of resistance, the voices of the accuser. There are 5 accusations that will arise in your mind, and you must be prepared to sentence them before they take root. The first voice says, "You are not worthy of this blessing. You have made too many mistakes. You have failed too many times. God could not possibly reward someone with your history." This voice is the echo of the old contract, the residual shame of the battlefield. It is the accuser's primary weapon. And you must respond with absolute clarity. My worthiness is not based on my performance. My worthiness is based on the divine verdict that has already been rendered. The contract was nullified not because I earned redemption. It was nullified because God speaks and his word is law. I am worthy because God declared me worthy. I am free because God declared me free. I am victorious because God declared me victorious. The accuser has no jurisdiction over a verdict that has already been executed. Your history is not your destiny. Your history is simply the battlefield where the victory was earned. The second voice says, "What if you lose this? What if you make a mistake and the victory is taken away?" This is the voice of fear masquerading as prudence. It is designed to keep you in a defensive posture even after the battle has ended. You must respond. The victory cannot be lost because it is not based on my continued performance. It is based on a divine decree that is irreversible. I can make mistakes. I can stumble. I can even waver in my faith temporarily. But the verdict remains final. The forces remain nullified. The mastermind remains assembled and enforcing. My mistakes do not undo the cosmic sentence that has been pronounced over my life. I am protected by the nature of the verdict itself, not by the perfection of my execution. And if you allow this voice to persist, if you remain in a defensive crouch even after the victory is complete, you will delay the material manifestation unnecessarily. The shock wave will move slower, the timeline will extend, and you will have chosen paranoia over possession. Fear is the old timeline trying to sustain itself through your doubt. The third voice says, maybe this is just psychology. Maybe I am fooling myself. Maybe this is just manifestation thinking and not real spiritual power. This voice attempts to undermine your foundation by attacking the legitimacy of the mechanism itself. You must respond with conviction. Napoleon Hill documented these principles through the lives of hundreds of men who built empires from nothing. Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. These were not men who believed in fantasy. These were men who understood mechanical law. The principles work not because I believe in them. The principles work because they are expressions of how the universe actually operates. The universe responds to frequency. Frequency responds to identity. Identity responds to disciplined repetition and decisive action. This is not psychology. This is physics. This is the law that governs matter and energy at every level. The men Hill studied were not dreamers. They were engineers of reality. And you are now enrolled in that same engineering school. The fourth voice says, the barrier is too large. The opposition is too strong. My situation is too impossible. You have given me tools, but they are not strong enough for my specific circumstances. This voice attempts to convince you that your situation is uniquely difficult, uniquely challenging, uniquely resistant to the law. You must respond. Every man who has ever built an empire faced a barrier that seemed too large. David faced Goliath. Abraham faced impossibility when he was called to father nations at advanced age. Joseph faced false accusation and years of imprisonment before his vindication was sudden and total. The size of the barrier is irrelevant to the power of the verdict. Goliath was larger than David. The opposition was more powerful. The circumstances were objectively impossible, and yet the verdict was executed. The mechanism does not fail because the barrier is large. The mechanism only fails when the enforcer loses frequency and abandons the decree. Your circumstances are not your enemy. Your abandoned decree is your enemy. Your wavering identity is your enemy. Your refusal to execute the enforcement protocol is your enemy. The barrier will fall because the verdict is absolute, but it will only fall if you remain locked in frequency, locked in identity, locked in enforcement. Do not underestimate the power of absolute conviction. The fifth voice says, I am afraid. I am afraid of success. I am afraid of what will change. I am afraid of who I will have to become. I am afraid of leaving the old identity completely behind, even though it was a prison. This is perhaps the deepest voice, the most dangerous voice, because it sounds like wisdom. It sounds like caution. It sounds like self-protection, but it is sabotage. And you must respond with profound compassion and absolute firmness. I understand the fear. The old identity was a prison, but it was a familiar prison. You knew the boundaries. You knew the pain. You knew exactly how to survive in that space. The new identity is freedom, but freedom is unfamiliar. Freedom requires you to make new choices, to trust new instincts, to occupy a frequency you have never inhabited before. This fear is valid. This fear is real. But this fear is not a reason to abandon the decree. This fear is a reason to execute it more forcefully, because on the other side of this fear is the sudden victory. On the other side of decrease, cementer, and stand of dace This fear is the life you have been praying for. On the other side of this fear is the version of you that has already been decreed by the divine verdict. Do not let fear rob you of the victory that is already yours. Feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then move forward anyway. This is courage, this is enforcement, this is how the victory becomes real. The fear you feel is not a sign to stop. The fear you feel is the boundary between who you were and who you are becoming. Now, we move into the space of absolute claiming. This is where you shift from understanding the mechanism to embodying the result. You are no longer the person receiving information about the verdict. You are the person who has received the verdict and is now living in its reality. Your posture changes. Your breathing changes. Your voice changes. You do not speak about the victory tentatively. You speak about it as if it is already here, because spiritually, it is already here. The material manifestation is simply catching up to what has already been decreed and executed in the unseen realm. This is the final frequency shift. This is the alignment between what God has done and what you now claim. Say these words aloud. Do not whisper them. Say them with the voice of someone who has won the war. Say them with the authority of someone who has been appointed to enforce the divine verdict. I am the enforcer of the divine verdict. I am the container of sudden victory. The battle is ended. The forces are nullified. The contract is void. I operate from the frequency of complete and irreversible triumph. My identity is fixed. My decree is law. My evidence is undeniable. I am the living proof that God's timing is perfect and his rewards are sudden and absolute. Let these words settle into your nervous system. Let them become your new baseline frequency. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. This is the language of someone who has stepped into the new timeline completely. Now I want you to make some declaration of presence. This is the moment when you lock in your commitment to the enforcement. Speak this: I am here. I am ready. I accept the divine verdict. I embrace the sudden victory. I refuse to re-engage with the old timeline. I will execute the 48-hour protocol with absolute discipline. I will maintain the frequency of enforcement for 48 hours and beyond. I will record the evidence in my victory journal. I will command the unseen realm to accelerate the manifestation. I will speak my identity 7 times daily. I will sentence every doubt and replace it with the creed of the enforcer. I declare this before heaven and earth. This is my oath. This is my covenant with the divine verdict that has been rendered over my life. The moment you have spoken these words, something shifts. The commitment is no longer theoretical. It is now a binding agreement between you and infinite intelligence. The mastermind is listening. The celestial alliance is activated at a new frequency. The enforcement has escalated from intention to declaration, and a declaration carries weight in both the seen and unseen realms. The spiritual forces now know that you are serious. The material circumstances now begin to rearrange at accelerated speed. The timeline of manifestation compresses. The sudden victory moves from future to present. If you refuse to make this declaration, if you remain silent, if you keep the oath private, if you allow shame or fear to muffle your voice, you delay the acceleration. You choose the slower timeline. You extend the lag between the spiritual verdict and the material manifestation. Silence is consent to the old contract. Declaration is the execution of the new one. For the next 48 hours, you will execute the protocol with non-negotiable discipline. Tonight at 11 p.m., you take your written decree. You read the verse of command 7 times. By the authority of infinite intelligence, the divine verdict is final. I command the immediate and total manifestation of my sudden victory. You speak your identity statement 7 times. You sit in silence for 5 minutes. You visualize the celestial alliance enforcing your decree across the globe. You feel the certainty that the victory is already moving through the material plane. Upon waking, you audit You find one piece of evidence, you record it, you speak it aloud, you lock it into your consciousness. This is non-negotiable. This is law. If you miss even one of these steps, you have broken the chain of enforcement. The shock wave will slow, the manifestation will delay, and you will have sabotaged the victory yourself. So, you do not miss. You execute with precision. You execute with discipline. You execute as if your new life depends on it, because it does. Within the next 24 hours, you will take your most important action. This action is not optional. This action is the physical evidence of your commitment. This action is how you tell the universe that you are serious about the enforcement. Here is what you will do. You will find a public space, a coffee shop, a park, a street corner, anywhere with witnesses, and you will speak your identity statement aloud, not whisper, aloud. You will say, I am the enforcer of divine will, loud enough that people around you can hear. You will feel the discomfort. You will feel the vulnerability. You will feel the fear of judgment. And you will do it anyway. You will do it because public declaration locks the mechanism. You will do it because the universe responds to bold action. You will do it because you are no longer the person who hides. You are the person who claims. You are the person who speaks truth in public. You are the person who refuses to be silent about the sudden victory that has been decreed over your life. When you do this, the discomfort will pass. The fear will transform into power. The vulnerability will become strength. And everyone within earshot will sense the shift. Now we come to the 11 mirror lines. These are the statements that will become your daily reinforcement, your constant reminder of the truth of the new timeline. You will read these 11 lines every morning, immediately after your identity statement. You will read them with the authority of someone who has already won. You will read them as truth, not as aspiration. The first line, I am no longer the person who struggles. I am the person who commands. The second line, I am no longer the person who waits. I am the person who executes. The third line, I am no longer the person who doubts. I am the person who knows. The fourth line, I am no longer the person who begs. I am the person who decrees. The fifth line, I am no longer the person who accepts scraps. I am the person who receives abundance. The sixth line, I am no longer the person who fears the future. I am the person who claims the future. The seventh line, I am no longer the person who tolerates resistance. I am the person who demolishes barriers. The eighth line, I am no longer the person who operates from scarcity. I am the person who commands wealth. The ninth line, I am no longer the person who questions my worthiness. I am the person who embodies divine worthiness. The 10th line, I am no longer the person who is alone. I am the person who commands legions of unseen allies. The 11th line, I am no longer the person waiting for victory. I am the person who is victory. Read these 11 lines every morning. Feel them sinking into your subconscious. Feel them overwriting the old code. Feel them installing new software that broadcasts the frequency of sudden victory to every cell in your body and every entity in the unseen realm. These 11 lines are your daily meditation. They are your daily prayer. They are your daily enforcement of the identity that holds the sudden victory in place. When you speak them, you are not trying to become something new. You are recognizing what you already are in the timeline where the verdict is final. Take another moment now. Close your eyes. Feel the weight lifting from your shoulders. The crushing weight that you have carried throughout the entire battle is gone. It evaporated the moment the verdict was rendered. Feel the space where the weight was. Feel the lightness. Feel the freedom. This is not imagination. This is recognition. You are recognizing what has already been done. Visualize the exact evidence of your sudden victory. Do not generalize. Do not use vague imagery. Be specific. See the deposit in your account. See the exact dollar amount if you decreed wealth. See the relationship restored if you decreed reconciliation. See the health returned if you decreed healing. See the opportunity manifested if you decreed career breakthrough. Whatever was decreed, see it. Not as future possibility. See it as present reality. See it as already done. See yourself receiving it. See yourself celebrating it. See yourself living in the new reality. And as you see this, feel the gratitude. Not gratitude for something that might happen. Gratitude for something that has already been done. Gratitude for a victory that is already complete. Gratitude for a breakthrough that is already secured. Let this gratitude fill your chest. Let it overflow. Let it become the frequency that you broadcast to the universe for the next 48 hours and beyond. This gratitude is the currency that pays the mastermind. This gratitude is the evidence that you already occupy the new timeline. This gratitude is the proof that the verdict has been received and accepted. Open your eyes. You are no longer the person who closed them. You are the person who has seen the victory. You are the person who has felt it. You are the person who has claimed it. You are the person who will enforce it. The final image is locked into your consciousness now. The image is this: the gavel has come down. The verdict is final. The payment is already in motion. The sudden victory is no longer theoretical. It is law. It is happening. It is yours. The verdict has been given. The judgment is final. Payment is the way forward.